as I was finalizing up the intake sounds, I was about to exit, I hit the biggest pothole, and I know you're supposed to put, because it's front wheel drive, you're supposed to put the good tire in the front and the spare in the back. I don't care, it's almost 10 o'clock, I'm trying to go home. Fun little side quest, you know? Suck, bang, blow. That's essentially how a car engine works. I think there might be a couple of extra steps in between. And today we're working to suck. We're sucking more. How to suck better. Okay, what I'm trying to say is I'm installing and reviewing an intake, specifically the ARM Motorsports MQB intake. And this thing is huge, which makes it able to suck even more. God damn it. This video is gonna have me installing it, sound clips, and my personal take on it. So skip to whichever timestamp in the chapters you wanna see first. Full disclaimer, they did send this to me, but there was no exchange of money. They're not paying me for anything. They're not paying me to say anything. And all of these opinions are of my own. But what they did give me to give to you guys is this coupon code. Use the code Lucas10 right here-ish for 10% off of your order. I don't get any kickback or any percentage or any commission if you guys use the coupon. It's just something I asked for to give to you guys. So if you're gonna buy something anyways, might as well like use that coupon code and get 10% off. So again, thank you ARM Motorsports for the support of this build. Does it even count as a build? Wheels and tires don't count as a build, but I have an intake and I have a tune. Is that count as a build? Hello, this is post-install Lucas. I did record a step-by-step instructions as I was doing it, but of course, just like clockwork, just like the memes, just like the TikToks, it never works out like it's supposed to. There is a PDF version of the install instructions on ARM's website, so my engine bay is gonna look a bit different from yours because I already have a K&N open intake installed, and the only reason I have this intake in the first place is because someone from my neighborhood had a Mark 7 that he was trading in, and he was like, hey, I see you around all the time, do you want this intake? And I'm like, well, I'm not gonna say no to free parts, so yes. And I've actually never really liked this intake anyways. For some reason, the cone would never stay in place, and I guess it was better than the stock one, but if I had to do it all over again, if I had to buy my own intake, I probably wouldn't have bought the K&N one. But if you're coming from a stock intake, there's probably a million videos online already on how to remove just the stock intake, so you don't need to hear that from me. And if you're following on a PDF, I'm basically starting at step 9. I also just want to take a moment and just compare the old K&N intake to the ARM one and look at how much of a difference there is in size. So before doing anything, there's a little bit of prep work I recommend you do that should make the whole install process way easier when you actually get to installing it onto your car. So first thing, there's a rubber trim that goes around the edge of the heat shield. So as I was putting this onto the heat shield, what I did when I got to the corners was I actually cut the rubber. I cut it at the bends to help them sit better and sit more flush. So when I had everything lined up and all the excess cut off and all the rubber was sitting like it was supposed to, I took one of my Leatherman multi-tools, but you can probably do this with almost any blunt edge, and I was basically just pushing a lining into the heat shield. And then the second part of the prep work is you have to install these rubber grommets into the hose, and there's no like technique into it. Honestly, just keep stuffing it in until it fits. First step, now that we're actually at the car ready to install, we put the 102/78 worm clip onto the smaller opening of the silicone tube. I made this mistake when I was first installing it, but I suggest you don't fully tighten anything down first. Put everything in, have everything lined up, and then the last step is to tighten everything. After you have the worm clip onto the silicone tubing, you basically just stuff the smaller end into the turbo inlet pipe. Push and stuff, there's no technique into it or anything like that. And then when you have the silicone tube lined up, you're ready to put in the heat shield. So for the heat shield, I found out it actually might be easier to put the cone into the heat shield first and then finagle this whole unit into the engine bay. On the PDF from ARM, they recommend that you remove the airbox inlet too, which I didn't do. And I guess it would be easier if you do remove it, you would have more space. Next, make sure your rubber grommets are lined up, and I found out that they don't have to sit all the way down in the post, because when I was doing this I thought like they had to sit perfectly flush with the post in the OEM locations. Just good enough is good enough. Another thing I was concerned about and trying to mess with was how the connection between the silicone tubing and the heat shield, it isn't a perfectly leveled connection, if that makes sense. So the connection in the end comes out to like a V shape, and I don't think it's an issue. I double checked with ARM and they say it's perfectly normal like that, as long as this connection is, you know, connected and sealed. And I'm not sure if this is the reason why, but I also have a Unitronic turbo inlet pipe, and my theory is that, is it because this aftermarket Unitronic turbo inlet pipe is a bigger opening, it's sitting higher than the stock one, it's therefore like pushing the silicone tubing to sit higher and therefore more angled down now, because I need it to sit lower and then it would be like a perfectly straight 100% leveled connection. So after taking forever trying to finagle the silicone tubing with the heat shield, I installed the cone, and this cone is massive. I had a hard time trying to force it and like push it into the heat shield area without removing the stock inlet area.
yeah. And I double checked with my contact at ARM and they said they swapped out all of their old blue cones, the ones that you see on all their pages, their pictures and stuff, for this massive one that I have right now. So after all that, after everything is somewhat sitting properly, you can probably start tightening all the clamps. I tighten everything by hand and this is super tight. These parts are not going anywhere. And yeah, that is about it. It definitely feels like it pulls harder. I don't know, it feels like it pulls harder. It doesn't sound any louder, but it feels like it pulls harder. So here's the thing, ARM's website is claiming that this intake is going to give you 15 more horsepower and 15 more torque. Theoretically, yes, more air should equal more power, right? I mean, also look at the size of that cone, it's like massive. So theoretically, yes, you should be getting more power with less air restriction and more air into your turbo, your engine, right? But I can't sit here and tell you, yes, you're exactly gonna get 50 more horsepower, exactly 50 more torque. I can't definitively say, yes, this is the best intake ever, this is the only intake you should ever take. Get it right now, go buy my course. It very well could be. It could be the best intake out there, but I have no definitive scientific proof to run tests or to experiment to prove it. Like I don't have any scientific evidence to prove it to you. Although I don't personally have any evidence to provide or to show you guys. There's another Mark 7 enthusiast out there that goes by the name of Jeff, and he runs a website that I love to reference a lot called MyGolf MK7. I know it's called Mark 7, but it's spelled MyGolfMK7.com. And he runs a bunch of tests on various parts for the Mark 7, from intakes to turbo inlet pipes to I think maybe exhaust and downpipes or something like that. But he does actual testing with performance parts for the Mark 7 GTIs. And I'm happy to say that in his intake testing, ARM Motorsports intake actually was ranked second in the whole list of various intakes that he tested. What I can say from my personal experience, right after installing it and going out for a drive, I feel like the car pulls harder. I don't know if that's like a placebo effect because, oh, I know it is more air that I'm feeling that it is pulling harder, but also feels like there's less turbo lag. Again, that's what it feels like to me. And then also I can't tell if it is louder or not than my old K&N open intake, because what I think it is that I'm already coming from an open intake, so the noise is nothing new to me. You know, it might be louder, but I'm like, can't tell if it's significantly louder because it's both open intakes comparing to each other. But what I can guarantee is that if you're coming from a stock intake, the stock intake box, and you're going to an open intake, you will definitely notice a major difference. And if you end up going this route, getting an ARM open intake, be sure to post some before and after sound clips, especially if you're coming from like a stock intake box to this ARM one, and tag them on Instagram and TikTok. I think they have a TikTok, I don't know. And if you're getting anything else on ARM's website, be sure to use discount code Lucas10 for 10% off. It doesn't even have to be Mark 7 GTI exclusive. They have a bunch of other parts for a bunch of other cars. Well, I guess not bunch. They have Audis, BMWs, Mark 6 GTIs, so maybe not a bunch, but they do have performance parts for other turbocharged German cars. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks for watching, especially if you made it this far. I hope you found this video helpful. And as always, feel free to put your comments or questions below, and I try my best to answer them to the best of my ability. If I can't, maybe someone else will. Maybe someone else will jump in, or even better yet, someone from ARM can jump in and answer the more specific questions. And catch you on the next one. This is the part where the camera is supposed to fly away, and then I'm supposed to like cinematically walk into my car and drive off.